Hello and welcome to Franchising Uncut, a spin-off of Tell Us Your Effing Story, a podcast by BDC Partners, a leading franchise and retail advisory firm. Franchising Uncut is a series of interviews with leaders in the franchise and retail space. I'm your host, Bruce McFarlane. I'm here with John Sully, and today we're here with Tracy Cooper, founder and CEO of Dokio. Welcome, Tracy. So Dokio is a communications and marketing platform that helps businesses to drive sales and customer engagement. You've got clients across Asia, Australia, the US, basically globally, everywhere. So tell us about Dokio. Like, why did you start Dokio, and what's the problem you're solving in the market with Dokio?
So the problem we're solving in the market for Dokio is sort of stopping that conflict between sales, marketing and compliance. It's sort of that cycle. So you can imagine in a franchise environment, you need to have control. You need to have control of brand. You often need to have control of pricing. You definitely need to have control of wording. In some cases, like pharmacy, you need to know that disclaimers are on particular things. From a compliance perspective, often when you're trying to get things to market, that slows things down because you've got too many bottlenecks for approvals. Equally, when it comes to brand and you're looking at things in digital marketing and stuff now where you've got multiple different sizes, if you're doing those all manually, that once again is a bottleneck. And it stops the businesses, it stops your franchisees, it stops your sales teams from actually doing what they need to do, which is actually getting communications or content to market so they can sell something. So what we do is pretty much automate that process to make sure that compliance and marketing can prepare content that can be dynamically changed at the point of sale.
So I'll go back a step, because you obviously have leading franchise brands that you work with. Was franchising on the radar when you started it, or was it just around, because it was more just about business in general, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And how to help business be more efficient rather than franchising. And franchising came a little bit later. Yeah.
So we came from an agency environment. So we came from a scenario where our big customers were asking for small fixes and small variations that were taking too much time. And they said, surely you can automate this. And that's what started it. And then when we really looked at the pattern of the problem, we realized the pattern of the problem fits much more with things like franchising, dealerships and those sort of places where you've got a small central team that just cannot get enough done for a really large network. And these networks cannot afford to have really big central teams. So it's sort of the business problem was so much more amplified in that environment. It makes much more sense. And I think our value proposition is just much stronger.
So we'll come back to franchising in a sec, but just obviously you've got global clients.
We do.
And so some of the, we'll talk big business first, like some of these global clients, like give us a couple of examples of some of these global clients that you've been working with for some time now. And
I mean, the best one would be American Express.
Yep.
I mean, they we're in 13 different countries and it's all email. So, you know, what they have is exactly the same problem, but just imagine it is to do with marketing teams. So they've got to do email marketing. They want to make sure it's compliant. They want to make sure that the right language is there, the right terms and conditions, particularly on the brands. If you've got one particular type of branded card, it needs to look a very different way. Accessibility is important. All of the things that are the building blocks to an email are really important. We just serve those up to the particular countries, and then they use that to create the beautiful American Express emails that we all get. Here in Australia.
But you're not doing the content?
No, the content is always the clients. What we're doing is the framework around the content, and then the content is loaded or accessible in some sort of integration with Dokio.
And have they got any, since they've been doing it, have you got any stats about how it's, improved sales or anything like that? Because it's standardised and professional and properly done?
We can demonstrate that they have a better open rate and click rate with emails that are developed on Dokio or developed properly on brand would probably be the better way of saying it. Also, even in the NISA network, post-COVID, one of the states, the teams just weren't selling as much and they couldn't understand why. And then they realised that they weren't using their DAP with their dealer advertising portal, which is Dokio.
Right.
And they weren't using it properly. They'd had a whole lot of new salespeople come through and they weren't trained.
Hadn't been trained.
The moment they trained them and they started using the DAP, they started selling more cars, and they put it straight down to the empowerment of the right piece of collateral at the right time in the selling cycle. And the way you organise the data is pretty much based on your workflow, so it makes it easier to do so. And I mean, that applies to anything. It applies to the way you do an extended campaign in a franchise LAM environment or in a dealer network.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's helping, obviously, ultimately for the franchisees or the dealers or whatever they are to be more efficient and to be able to get out there and sell more cars or sell more products. And so you also help save costs.
Well, I was going to say, it is about also saving costs. So imagine that you've got a new store opening, and you're a growing franchise, and you've got all your collateral, and all you need to do is just put a new address in, and a new suburb name or whatever it is, and it populates through, and that content is easily sent off and generated. That's what we do. And so, Dokio is a really powerful user-based system. So it means that it knows a lot about the person who's accessing it. It knows what data they should be seeing. It knows when to pre-populate things like their address, QR codes, whatever it may be. It also can embed things into, one of our clients uses it to embed their customer data in. So imagine I'm in insurance and I need to have a particular discount rate because that's my contracted discount rate for that corporate. Whenever anything is developed on Dokio and it's a client-facing thing, as soon as that client's code, like name is mentioned, it populates into all the terms and conditions. So they know absolutely categorically that they are totally compliant, and they don't have any commercial risk.
So that's it links up with a CRM as well, or is that okay?
Yeah,
so it's not a CRM, but it talks to all types.
That's right. Imagine it's a lot of powerful databases, a really good rendering engine, like renders things at the other end, and it compiles stuff through, and it's got very solid user management. If you wanted to break it down, but ultimately the best way of thinking about Dokio is that if you have a business where you are wanting to scale it and you don't want to continue to build cost in your delivery channel, and that cost can be marketing cost, mostly marketing and design cost, and you want to de-risk it a bit. So you want to make sure that, your franchisees or your end users have the ability to localize and personalize, but only within the guardrails you want. That's what you use Dokio for, and you do that cost effectively. So one person is managing a LAM project in one of our customers for, I think, 400 pharmacies. It's just, but they're able to get stuff through. Their design team can get it up, and so it's about scale.
So are there many people still sending posters and brochures out?
Surprisingly many, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, even if they send brochures out, they're digital brochures. Right, but someone wants to get something and they want it to be localized or personalized. They want to have particular things in it, and then you might have a digital poster that goes out which has got hyperlinks in it, and then you can track what they're engaging. So imagine I'm in aged care, I'm in anywhere where I'm trying to sell a service, and I give them a proposal, I give them my brochure, but I want to know, are they clicking on the links that I've given them? That's you can do that via email. Sometimes you do it via poster, and depending on your age range. About 5% of our customers do print, but if their volume is print, then an enormous amount of their content is not just digital. It's digital, but goes into email and gets sent to someone.
Can I keep going on my question, please, Bruce? Hey, it's hot in here, by the way. Did you notice that?
What is summer?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. So does it link up to social media platforms? Or do you need separate teams to lodge those ads that have done?
So the way that it works, so imagine in GWM's case, for example, a car dealership, their dealers will have everyone will have different marketing campaigns that they use, for example, or they'll have different things. So it will export and be uploaded into Google for a GDN ad. It can export and you can upload it into your social media planner.
Yeah.
We have offered to integrate with clients' social media platforms before, and most of them go, look, we just have a planning tool. It's great. We use it. That's okay. As long as we get the asset, we're fine. So it depends on the client and what they want to do.
Okay.
Equally, we can send to things like Salesforce, which is, very expensive CRM.
Mm-hmm.
We also send to Marigold. You can send emails via Dokio as well if you just want to do some basic sort of stuff. If you've got a good CRM, we always say, let's export it to that.
And do you sort of liaise or jump in with Fran Connect or Ops Central or anything like that? Do you work in conjunction with that?
We're hoping to work more and more with those organisations. It's sort of
good.
we don't want to boil ocean. We know what we're really good at and we want to stay good at that, but we want to make sure that we're working with as many people as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's good. It's very good.
I've just been to IFA, Tracy, where you and I spent a bit of time a couple of years ago, and obviously AI is a big topic, but I want to talk about that in a minute. But before that, you work with a number of different marketing teams across big and small organisations. So what sort of things are you seeing with on the client side in sort of marketing teams and how they're coping with all the things happening kind of other than AI, like what the teams are doing, and not just about Dokio, but what's happening generally out in the marketplace?
So there's a couple of things that I think are really interesting trends. One is, marketing teams have been slammed for a long time. Marketing budgets, if they're getting bigger in the execution, not necessarily in the creative, which is a problem. And creative is so important around how you can really stand apart and the sort of work that you can do with your campaigns. So we're seeing a lot of our customers saying, hey, we need to spend more on creative. How do we make this more cost effective? So there's a lot of this tension between how you go and spend your money.
So how they're using the money. So they don't have more money. No. They've just got to spend it more wisely.
They've got less people. They've got less money. And so there's that particular tension. And then I think the second one is that as businesses start getting more and more margin sensitive and more wanting to see growth, there tends to be more tension between marketing and the rest of the business as being something that really needs to be enabled. So half of our customers, their marketing teams are so integrated into their business model and business flow that you can see they're so critical. The other half, they sort of treat them like a service, and that doesn't work so well. So the trend is to try and move towards that. I mean, I've seen some situations where someone who's head of marketing has gone into not just marketing but business enablement, and she's been able to develop business processes that go to market that have increased their business materially. So marketing teams, they're very business savvy. I just don't think they normally get the credit they deserve.
And sorry, I was just going to and then sales. So as a distinct from marketing teams, you see this work with some that are sales and marketing teams and others that are marketing and because there's often a conflict there between between sales teams and marketing teams.
But it's not a conflict of ideas. It's a conflict of process, in my view. If you fix that process, those sales and marketing teams will work well together. But if the sales team feels that the marketing team's holding them back because it's taking too long, if the marketing team thinks the sales team is off-piste because they're off doing something that's just not going to get the cut through, that's where the conflict is. The moment you remove that, they become really well-oiled machines and they do work well together. And we've seen that with all of our clients.
Yeah, whether they be franchised or non-franchised.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because I know, just going back to the US, but there's pretty sophisticated marketing teams and then franchise development, sales people out there, and they're building teams, and they seem to go off on their own little worlds.
In the franchise world, the biggest thing I hear is, my franchisees are too busy to do that. They're too busy to and I'm like, well, that's the problem, right? Because if we've got a situation in place where you've lost the ability to get cut through, your 3-5 messages, this is what you need to do, this is your business model. If you do this right, you will be successful. If you don't do this right, you're going to create problems for us all.
Yeah, struggle.
And so somehow being able to get bite-sized, simple, easy things to franchisees to make it work will help. When you take the marketing and franchise development and you put them so far away, guarantee you that these guys will be doing something brilliant. These guys will not know that it's happening, and the end franchisee will just be lost in translation. And that's what you've got to sort of try and work against. The whole concept, I think, is to try and think small and make that amplify out. You shouldn't need to do too much. You should have a really good process. You should be able to get the engagement that you need.
Do you think Australian loaded question? Do you think Australian businesses on a marketing side are underfunded compared to US?
I think Australian businesses on many levels are underfunded in comparison to the US because we are either hyper big or we lack scale, right? And I think we see that in the way that you see franchise models stop. They can't get past a certain growth phase. Now, you know, what is that? It's because our biggest market here is what, like 10% of one of the places of the US. So like they can't get that fast traction. Some, I mean, Boost Juice is a great example, right? Some just they do it, but many don't. And I think like I see that in many businesses in Australia. We just don't have that scale. So the investment ability is not as great. The risk return ratio is not that great unless you can have something that either goes viral or more importantly goes offshore. And you know, it's like speaking from experience, it's not easy going offshore. You know.
No.
And so with the marketing teams that you're working with, there's also marketing for customers for franchisees and there's marketing for more franchisees, which are different skills. So do you see, you know, teams that are very good at marketing for customers, but then...
I think there's a difference between identifying and attracting them, but the overall marketing needs to be the same. The value proposition has to be, this is a brand that is going to enable you to establish a location where you will have enough volume that you will make money. And you'll do that because we have the best processes, the best system, the best value proposition, all of these things. So if you're selling that to the person who's already bought in, it's exactly the same value proposition you're selling to the person who has yet to buy in. And in fact, as they're buying in and as they're waiting, you're sort of wanting to put them on some sort of journey. To me, that is all the one marketing. It's all the one process. And ultimately, you really want the people that have bought in bringing more people to buy in. So by definition, you know, you sort of, the message is the same. I really think it's
closing the loop.
How you find them, like your sources, like, you know, one is B to B to C. So I need to sell something to you to sell to someone else versus the other one is I need to find someone that wants to invest. So I think, but ultimately, to me, I feel like they're the same message.
Cool. And so I mentioned AI earlier. So obviously that was the biggest topic at the IFA and, you know, how people are integrating AI into all aspects from marketing and sales and operations and just to get more efficiency. And, you know, franchising is about brand and it's about systems. And if you can be more efficient.
Yeah. I mean, I have a view. I have a tech background, so I have a view that says people are talking about AI now, and they're really just talking about all the fluffy stuff, right? You know, AI is going to be impactful when we have, you know, the ability and the chip capability, which is quantum, but to basically be able to do things like solve really big problems, genome problems, and all those sort of things. So that's how I see AI as being a real life changer for us. We use and will use AI to do things like, you know, support code development, to look at particular interfaces to do with, you know, report suites and all of those sort of things. When it comes to content creation, our client's AI has to be used because it's not our content, it's not our voice, and it's really important that we just keep that, you know, so we want our client's voice to be there. We're a really smart dumb tool or a dumb smart tool, depending on how you look at it, but everything about it is our client's world. And so the ones that are experimenting with AI, we're talking with them. The ones, and many of them though are saying, we are not putting AI that far into our organisation just yet. We want it to look at image development. We want to look at it content development, but basically we'll do that outside of a tool in a very controlled environment. I do believe things like bots, processes, the way that we go about finding information, the way that we have tools behind us and beside us will change over time. So it will be very, very obvious that we will have, you know, as we're doing some work, it'll say, hey, you know, you've been really repetitive on that, or hey, have you thought about this? Or I'll send my bot off to do some research on a particular market or whatever it may be, and it'll come back to me. So, our ability and the way we search for stuff now will be AI enabled, and I think that's really exciting. I'm definitely pro AI, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, to me, at the moment, we're just talking about efficiencies and effectiveness and go-to-market fastness. It's when it starts transforming what we do or how we live that I think we'll start seeing some. And I don't think we're that far away from it, to be honest.
No. And do you see that, obviously, again, you work across big business and small business, and so a lot of the smaller franchisors, in my experience, are a little bit scared of it, and also don't have the resources to do it properly. And so have you seen any of sort of smaller franchisors using AI effectively already?
I haven't. I've seen some small startups using it really well. And so,
But they're tech companies?
But they're tech companies.
Yeah.
Or they're in the things like aged care or something like that, and they're using it to really help arrange data and control data. I mean, when it comes to using AI in a network, the reality is that AI at the moment, unless it's got the right prompts, the right guardrails, and the right systems around it, is not going to give you an image that you're going to want to use on a poster in your store if you're on a branded environment. But it certainly will be the sort of thing that will help you go and identify the right image you want. So you'll see in DAMs that they're using digital asset management systems are using AI so that you can more readily go and find what you need, organize. So I think marketing teams are using it a lot more than we think, but I'm not sure the end user is using it yet, and I'm not sure that they need to that extent, because really what they're trying to do is get curated content straight up so that they can go and do what they need to do, which is not use AI, but go and delight a customer, go and make a sale, go and do something that is far more people-oriented. And that's the thing, franchising is very people-oriented. Remember 2 years ago we were at IFA and one of the guys stood up and talked about the fact that he'd been through a recruitment process and he was running a big recruitment process. This is a very, very large franchise in the US. And someone turned up for an interview and they said, "Oh, where's Sarah? I'd like to meet Sarah." And he said, "Well, Sarah doesn't exist. She's a bot." And half the room went, "That's unacceptable." And the other half of the room went, "Oh, that's amazing."
Yeah, right.
And then that was 2 years ago, and it made me realise that, it's a very divisive thing about someone pretending or something pretending to be someone. And so I think it'll be fun to see how this plays out. But we're seeing it in the EU a bit at the moment. They're pretty...
John's playing around with the voice ones and for businesses, and how can you order your pizza with AI, and do people feel cheated when if they figure out that I've been talking to a robot when I'm ordering my pizza?
We're going to own it and say, do you want to talk to our bot or do you want to talk to our franchisee?
I had a beer with a guy who's AI. In fact, the Royals, they started the Royals where you guys
are. Yeah.
And I sort of said to him, and I was telling him the story about this whole, thing in Las Vegas. And he sort of said to me, he said, "Trace, you don't understand. By the time it happens, my bot's going to be talking to your bot and you and I are going to be down the bar having a drink, right? You're just going to have them, your bots will just do what you need to do. They'll order your pizza for you because the odds are that they're going to be talking to another bot,
Yeah.
So anyway.
That's interesting, isn't it? So I've got a loaded question for you again. Another one. Because I'm going to come back to that underfunding of marketing here, but and this is more about your product, but I'll be really interested to see of the franchise systems that you've got. I assume you can get onto the system and go, well, here's our 40 franchisees. Bruce, who has the Croydon store, has not logged on to Dokio since January 2007, whereas John, who's got the Mornington store, whatever, is on there every second day. Can you do that?
Oh, absolutely.
And what is without giving any secrets away, what is the engagement, do you think, from a franchisee level?
So I think you've got to look at it. It depends on the network. So some of them have particular strong processes where they go, we're going to have quarterly programs. We're going to go in and, we have our quarterly LAM process. We have our grand openings. We have they've got a business cycle. What you want to know is when they're in, when they should be in, they're in, and when they're not, they're not. unless they need something like a store sign because their opening hours have changed or whatever it may be. So depending on what business you're looking for engagement, we can see down to like the minute that people are in and out of the system. And we do that year on year. So we can see when they're in, what they've done, how many downloads they've got, so it's all about that. Like that.
And is that part of your reporting process, that engagement with their actual franchisee?
Yeah.
Is there a benchmark, sort of an amount that do you say to franchisors, okay, really, you guys should get this? I don't know how you do it. It's an average of 6 times a
You want to see an
month
increase
on?
in uptake. So if you've got a current process that you're doing and you feel that you're getting like your downloads or you're getting this sort of uptake, you want to see a consistent increase in uptake, right? And so it depends on the franchise network. And then, like for example, it's a decision support tool. For one of our customers, one of the car customers, Every general manager and every senior manager in the business gets a report once a week that shows what's been downloaded by state, by dealer, by car, by model, by brand, by model, because they want to see, and they see it for the whole year. And what they're looking for is they understand when their campaigns are and they understand when the activity is. They know if they're not downloading, they're not selling.
Wonder if there's a direct correlation to downloads and sales. Or usage and sales.
I think they must believe there is, because they ask for it everything. And the other thing is also they also watch what's being downloaded to know there's no use you downloading that brand. We've got 5 months before we're going to get one of those cars into the country. These are the ones we need you to sell. So,
I think we're shit at marketing in this country. I really do. That's why I asked before. I remember years ago when I went over to the States and there was this busted ass Mexican chain. Called Moe's, and every time you walked in the door, the whole staff had to stop and go, "Welcome to Moe's," and they all yell out. It's like, "Oh, you're right. Oh, that's a bit fucking scary."
You get going in and out, did you?
Just to see how much I could piss them off. But when I looked at it, started looking at all these companies that at that time, and that's back in sort of 2005. Excuse me, 2005, 2006. Their marketing funds were marketing funds were 4 to 5%. And Australia is still 2. We're still 2 to 3. We're miles off where we should be spending on marketing, in my opinion. And it's every business that we've been looking at, it's like, Christ, okay, the one we've just invested in, we're doubling the marketing because it's just, people are just led now, they really are. And particularly in the States, they're told what to eat. They're very sheep-like in their mentality, and I don't know if we necessarily are like that, but I think we're not far behind.
Yeah, so it's an under-resourced question again, but I might just bring it back to
Hang on a
franchise.
sec, before we do that, though, I just want to also note that it's about your cost of acquisition as well. It's about how much churn you have with your customer base, and also it's about how you're spending that money, right? So you can throw 5%, you can throw 7% at something, but if you don't do it well, and if you're actually doing too much fixed cost and too much, and for a lot of businesses confuse the busyness of what they're doing versus the value of what they're doing.
Yes.
And I think that the bigger issue is that people aren't really valuing their time and effort. And I see that a lot. I've seen a couple of our customers where I say, look, guys, you just stop and just think about what are you trying to achieve and how much is it costing you to get that done, right? The moment you sort of I come from an environment where we timesheet. We don't timesheet because we're worried about people not putting in effort. We're timesheeting because we're trying to understand, is this a good use of the company's time and my time? Will this be something that continues to add value, or is this just process? And if it's just process, well, how do we automate that, right? So I think, yes, there's definitely a lack of investment in some ways, but once again, I keep going back down to it's the market opportunity that is also going to balance that out. But most importantly is, as we're a smaller market, as we are quite, I think, sort of geographically not as dispersed as we'd like to think we are, you should be able to really efficiently and effectively get to that market.
I agree, absolutely.
We're nearly out of time, but just one thing, besides use Dokio, what sort of tips do you have for franchisors in sort of how to use their brand, to get their brand and their digital assets used effectively in their network?
I think it's about the communication. You know, it has to be about not communicating too much that you lose, like there's too much noise, but developing a relationship and a communication style with your team and with your network that says when you speak, they listen. When you offer something, they value it, right? And so you have to somehow figure out how you say, hey, we gave you this. These people picked it up. This is what value they got from it. This is what it did to the overall network. This is what it's doing to our brand. You need to do this. Now want to do it. And I think that's the thing about being compelling around it. And anyone that has a founder-led, a founder-oriented approach to something and truly understands the business they're in will, I think, do relatively well with that. Sometimes it gets a bit big, a bit blah, and then you lose that cut through. The moment you do that, your network stops listening to you. Your network stops listening to you. They start churning. If they start churning, you end up going broke.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks for your insights. Thanks, John.
Tracy. You're a legend.
Thank you very much for those who listen to our BDC Partners podcast. If you liked what you heard today, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.
Oh, Jesus, Bruce.